Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 6 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're unleashing the power of your Raspberry Pi Pico. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent set of video lessons. And in this class, we will be using the Sunfounder Kepler kit for Raspberry Pi Pico W. The kit has everything that you'll need for the class, including the Pico W. Now, most of you probably already have your gear, but if you don't, look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon, and you can hop on over there and get your kit. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to teach you is I'm going to teach you about how to use if statements and conditionals in MicroPython. Now, up till now, we've learned a lot of useful commands on the Pico W. We can do things like send commands to turn an LED on, send commands to turn an LED off, send commands to toggle an LED, blink an LED. We've done all types of interesting things. But as our projects become more advanced, we don't want to just go down and execute a set of commands. We want things to happen based on other things. So imagine if we had a thermometer and we had a fan hooked up to the Pico W. If the room starts getting warm, we want the fan to what? Turn on. If the room starts getting cool, if the room starts getting cool, we want the fan to what? To turn off. So we want to be able to program in conditionals or if statements where what happens depends on something else, if that makes sense. Now, don't worry, I'm going to take you through it step by step, and by the end of today's lesson, you should be very comfortable with if statements in MicroPython. So what I will need you to do is I'll need you to go ahead and get out your Pico W, fire it up, and then I will need you to go over and get your Thonny up and get ready to learn how to do these conditionals and if statements. I do believe I also need to get out of your way there. Okay, and I'm sorry I'm clearing my throat in this lesson. I am actually recovering from both malaria and pneumonia, so it's going to be a little bit of chest congestion for the next few lessons, but I'm going to power on through, and I appreciate your patience. Okay. Now, if we are going to use conditionals for me to demonstrate it to you, kind of the first thing you need to be able to do is you need to be able to get input from a user. You need to be able to get certain inputs from a user, like maybe you would want to say, at what temperature do you want the fan to come on? Well, you need to be able to get that from the user, and we do that using input statements. And so let me just kind of show you right here. I think I'll go ahead and make a while loop. So I'll say while true. When is true, true? True is always true. And then let's say I'm going to get a command. So I'm going to say CMD from command. Who do I want to get it from? I want to get it from the user. I want to get it from the keyboard. So I'm going to say CMD is equal to input. Now, open parentheses. Now I give the prompt. So I could say, what do you want the LED to be? Now I'm going to put a question mark. I'm going to close that string. I'm going to close the input. And then I'm going to say just simply print the CMD like that. So let's run this. Pretty simple program, right? What do you want the LED to be? I want it to be on. Okay. And then it says on. I want it to be off. Okay, off. I want it to toggle. Okay, now one thing you can see is I did not leave a space up here, and so it's jamming my answer into my question, and so it would be better if I did something like that. Now I'm going to come here and I'm going to say, what do you want the LED to be? On. And you also have to make sure that you have this active down here. So on, off, or toggle. So you see, now I have an ability. I've taught you how to get input from the user. Now what I need to show you is that if you just use the input command, what it reads in is a string or characters, not a number. Even if I said, let's see, I'll just come up here and I'll change this and say input something like that. And now I'm going to say run and input something. I'll say 7 and then it prints a 7. But what you have to see is it is not printing the number 7. It is printing the character 7. And let me show you that. So let me show you. If I come in here, now let me get another command and I'll say CMD is equal to input. Okay, and then I'll say input something else, question, like that. Okay, close it. And then I need to give this a different variable name, so I'll say command 2. And then let's say, I'm then going to say Z is equal to CMD plus CMD2. Okay, and now let's print Z. Okay, let's run this. And now let's run this. And what is it not like? Line 3. I forgot to close my quote there. Hopefully you guys saw that. So now let's run this. Input something 7. Input something else 3. Now what do you predict I'm going to get when I press enter? Okay, you might think 10, but you would be wrong. I get 7, 3. Why? I did the input as a string, and I did the input as a string, so it sees the character 7 and the character 3. It knows it can't add a character and a character, so it just stacks them on top of each other. So if you just use the input command, it inputs it as a string or it inputs it as a character. If you want it as a number, let's make it a floating point number. A floating point number are all the numbers, 5.1, 5.3, 5.7. If you want it just to input something as the round numbers, you would int it. But we're going to float it. So we're going to say CMD is equal to the float of the input. So that will turn the character 7 into the floating point number 7. And let's do the same thing here. And we will close that. And now let's try that. Okay, input something. I'm going to input a 7, and then I'm going to input a 3, and now, boom, prints a 10. Why? I converted the characters into numbers. Now, I did mention, you notice 10.0, it's kind of showing you that that's a floating point number. So I could do something like input 1.1, and I could input 2.3, and then it gives me the answer 3.4. Now, besides floating point numbers, there's also the round numbers, which are just like the ints. Okay, and the ints are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not the in-between number. So I could also change this to an int. And now when I run it, it's asking me for, let's say, a 7 and then a 3. And then it says the answer is 10. But you notice it's not a 10.0. Why? It's making everything round numbers. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. We had to kind of go through that in order to get to the main point of today's lesson, which is how to do if statements and conditionals. And that is what the program does depends on certain conditions. So let's come up here and let's play with that. Let me go ahead and let me get a number from the user. So I'm going to say CMD, or I'm going to say my input, because I don't want to say command because it might not be a command. I'll just say my input is equal to, and let's do numbers. So I need to make it a what? A float of an input. And then I'm going to say input your number, like that, okay? I'll close the, I close the string, I'll close the input, and now I'll close the float. Now, what I want to do is I want to see if the number is 5 or not. So I'm going to do a what? An if statement. If my input, I want to see if it's 5. Well, if I want to check for 5, I can't say if my input equal 5. In this case where we're doing conditionals, you have to say equal equal. So if my input equal the number 5, now how do I begin my if statement clause? I put a colon. It's sort of like up here when we begin the while loop, that colon, everything that's indented under there will be part of the while loop. Similarly, everything that is indented under this if statement will be part of the if clause. And so what I can say is if my input is equal to 5, then I could print. Notice how I'm tabbed over. I'm tabbed once for the while loop and now again for the if statement. Then I'm going to say your number is 5. Exclamation. We're kind of happy about that, okay? Now let's run this and see what happens, okay? What did it not like? I forgot to close my string like that. Hopefully you guys saw that. Input your number. I'm going to input the number 5, and it says your number is 5. Well, what if I put 6? Well, it doesn't say that, right? 7, 8, 9. It only prints it if the number is 5. Your number is 5. Okay. Well, I like it that it's telling me it's 5, but it's kind of leaves you hanging if the number is not 5. So we know how to check if something is equal. We also need to check if it's not equal. So then what I could do here is I need to start another if statement, so I'm not going to be tabbed over. If I'm tabbed over here, this if statement is going to be inside of the other if statement, but I don't want it there. I want it to be its own if statement. So if my input is not, exclamation, not equal to 5, then what am I going to print? I'm going to print your number is not 5, like that. Close the quote and then close the print. Now let's try that and see what happens, okay? So now it wants to know down here, input your number. Well, 4, it says your number is not 5. 7, your number is not 5. 5, your number is 5, okay? Now this is just like it is 5 or it's not 5. But also you want to know not just is it equal or not equal, you might want to know is it greater than or is it less than. And so instead of saying if my number is not equal to 5, I'm going to say like I wonder if it's bigger than 5 or less than 5. So if my input is equal to 5, I will print it's equal to 5. But if my input is greater than 5, then what am I going to do? I'm going to say print your number is greater than 5. Like that. Close that. And then what's the other possibility? If my input is less than 5, then print your number is less than 5. Okay? Now, let's see what happens when we run this. Okay, input my number. If I say 5, your number is 5. What if I say 2? Your number is less than 5. What if I say 7? Your number is greater than 5. Okay, so you see I can compare it. Is it equal to 5? Is it less than 5? Or is it greater than 5? Okay. Now the other thing you can do is, besides less than, equal, greater than, not equal, you can also do greater than or equal to, or you can do less than or equal to. And so I want to say, is my number 5 or below? Okay, is my number 5 or below? In that case, what would it be? If my input is less than or equal to 5, then what am I going to say? Print your number your number is less than or equal to 5, like that. Okay, and then what's the other case? Well, if my input is greater than, if my input is greater than 5, then it would be print your number is greater than 5. Okay, so now let's see what happens. Okay, input your number 4. Your number is less than or equal to 5. If I put 5, your number is less than or equal to 5. If I put 6, your number is greater than 5. Okay, now what's really important is a lot of times you're doing things where you're between certain values, like between 0 and 20, you want to do something, between 20 and 40, you want to do something, between 40 and 60, you want to do something. You've got to make sure on those transition points that you cover them unambiguously. Because what if I said, what if I just did it like this? If my input is less than 5, if my input is greater than 5, then what I could say here, your number is less than 5. Okay, and now I run it. If I say 3, your number is less than 5. 6, your number is greater than 5. But if I put in 5, what? I haven't covered that point in the transition. And so I need to say either if my input is less than or equal to 5 and then greater than 5. Or I could say if my input is greater than or equal to 5, and then here it would be less than 5. Okay, but just like you don't want to not cover that transition point, the 5, you don't want to double cover it. Okay, so if I did something like this, what is going to happen now? If I put the number 5, it's going to trigger, it says your number is less than 5, your number is greater than 5. You see both boundaries, both sets of conditions trigger on the boundary. So when you're doing these if statements and conditionals, you've got to be very, very careful about the boundaries. So let's say you want to turn the fan on at 70 degrees or above. You would want to do it very, very carefully. So let's say my input is, when should the fan come on? Okay, so what I'm going to say is that no, I'm going to say, what is the temperature? Like that. Okay, what is the temperature? And then if my input is greater than 70 degrees, print turn fan on, like that. And if my input is less than 70, say turn fan off, like that. Okay, so now, what's the temperature? If I say 69, is that 9? Oh, this should have been less than up here. Okay, let's try it again. So what is the temperature if I say 69? I still don't have this right. This one should be less than. You want to turn it off if it's cold, and you want to turn it on if it's hot. So let me try one more time. What is the temperature? 69. Turn the fan off. What is the temperature? 71. Turn the fan on. Now, what is the problem with what I did? I didn't tell it what to do at 70. So if it's right at 70, it doesn't know what to do. So I need to say, let's say I want it to actually come on at 70 or above. Well, then I would put it here, greater than or equal to, and then less than 70, I want to turn it off. And now this case, this is going to work well. Okay, what is the temperature? The temperature is 69, and then the fan is off, and then 71, it's going to be on, and then if it's right at 70, voila, it's on. So always when you're using if statements, think about those transitions between your different boundaries, your different regions, because that's one of the areas that software really has trouble and crashes, and you get unexpected bugs, is if you're right at that transition value and you either overspecify it, like tell it to both turn on and off at 70, or don't tell it what to do at 70. So you got to be real careful about that. Okay, let's see if we can, so we can do equal to see if they're the same. Exclamation equal means not equal. We can do greater than, less than. We can do greater than or equal to, or we can do greater than, or we can do less than or equal to. So those are kind of our conditions. Now let's come over here and build something a little bit more fun, because I'd like to get a little bit more into kind of showing you how we might really do this. So I need you to go ahead and real quickly hook up an LED circuit. This is the one that I am using. I have one LED. Let's see. Let me get where you can see that better. I believe this will show better. Okay, so I've got my Raspberry Pi Pico W. When you're in this orientation, this is a ground. That third pin over is a ground right here, or I think it's this one right here is a ground. Okay, and so you can see that this is a ground, and then this is GPIO pin 15, physical pin 20, GPIO pin 15 is in the lower left. So what we're going to do is we're going to come off of GPIO 15. We're going to go to the long leg of the LED. Short leg of the LED goes through a 220 ohm resistor, and then the other leg of the 220 ohm resistor comes up to the ground rail, and then right here we are establishing the ground rail. And so that is a pretty simple circuit. You should be comfortable building that by now. And I'll come over here and just show you that I've got my build done already. Let me get this where you can see it good. Okay, and so that is my build. Now let's come over and let's see if we can program this with some if statements. And this is going to just really bug me if that is not perfectly square. Okay. There we go. So now let's come back up to our Thonny and let's see if we can actually do something kind of interesting here. And let's see. Okay, so I think you can see it here. I do believe I need to do a little tiny bit of Windows management. I'll bring this over here so you can see the LED and you can see my code. And I think that will work pretty good. Okay, can you guys see that hopefully? And I'll just be careful to make sure that I'm not putting stuff behind my head. But okay, so we're going to want to play with that LED. So if we're going to want to play with that LED, we are going to need to do a from machine import pin like that. And then we're going to need to import time import time, because we might want to play around with that a little bit. Now we're going to need to set up our LED object. So LED is equal to pin. And then what pin was it? Remember, it was GPIO 15 that I connected it to. And then that pin is going to be an out. Just reminding you guys that case is very important. The P in pin is uppercase. Machine is lowercase. Out is all uppercase. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say while true to create myself a little bit of a loop. When is true? True. True is always true. So we're going to be sitting here looping through this. And now I need to get the command from the user. And so I'm going to say CMD is going to be equal to, now I don't want a number, so I don't want to float it or int it. I just want it to be a string. So I'm just going to do an input. So I'm going to say input. What is your command? And then your choices are on, off, or toggle, like that. Now, I'm going to close the parenthesis there. Then I'm going to close the input parenthesis, and I need to make sure you can see that. You cannot quite see that. Give me just a second here. Okay, I just got to adjust this view just a little bit. Give me just a second. I'm sorry. I was not anticipating that to go over that far. Okay. There you go. Okay, so you can see the LED and you can see my code. So I've got the command, what the user wants, and his choices are on, off, or toggle. Now I'm going to say if that CMD is equal to, now since I'm comparing it to a string, I have to put the string in quotes. Just like I put this string in quotes up here, anytime you're comparing to a string, you have to put it in quotes. So if CMD is equal on, okay, put the colon. Now I come down indented. What do I want to do? LED value, I want to set to what? A 1. That will turn it on. Now, I don't want to have my next if statement underneath my other if statement, so I want to go back and unindent. So these are operating at the same level of indentation if CMD equal what? Off. In that case, what do I want to do? I want to make sure I get my colon is what I want to do. Okay. LED.value is going to be a what? It's going to be a 0. Now, what's the other thing I might want to do? I might want to toggle, okay? So then I would come up here and I would say if CMD equal toggle, in that case, what do I want to do? LED.toggle, like that, okay? And so now I should be able to control that LED from the keyboard, and that would be a pretty cool thing to be able to do, wouldn't it? Okay, so let's see if we can run this thing. I am going to kill it, and then I'm going to run it. What is your command? Hold your breath. O-N. Shazam! Look at that. All right, look at that. We were able to turn it on. And let's see, the only thing is you are not seeing those prompts down there. So let's see how I can fix that. Let me make sure that you're able to see those prompts that I'm doing. And if you give me just a second, I should be able to fix that. Yeah. Okay, and I'll get a little bit further out of your way. Let me adjust that just a little bit more. You never quite know when you're starting how this thing is gonna go. So let me come back over here. Let me get this. Let me move this over, and then let me bring this up. And there, I think now you can see exactly what I am doing. Okay, I think that's a pretty good view. Okay, so let's run this again. What do I want to do? This time I want to turn it off. Off. Giddy up. This time what do I want to do? Let me bring this up. Okay, there. Now what do I want to do? I want to toggle like that. Okay, toggle turned it on. What if I toggle again? Toggle turns it off. Toggle, or I can go on, or I can go off like that. Okay, pretty darn cool, huh? Do you see that? So what have we learned? I've learned how to control something on my prototype board, on my breadboard, based on input from the user and then using if statements and conditionals. And so I think that that is pretty darn cool. And I think that really sort of takes us to the next level as far as what we can start doing as far as projects and start doing things that are a lot more interesting, because now we understand how to do conditionals. And so I do need to give you your homework for next week. Now, what I've already shown you how to do is I've shown you how to turn off and interact with an LED. We've done projects where you've used more than one LED at a time. And so this is your homework for next week. I want you to build a circuit. That circuit should have a potentiometer. Okay, that circuit should have a potentiometer. You should have 3 LEDs in your circuit. You should have a red LED, a yellow LED, and a green LED. So 3 different LEDs, 3 different current limiting resistors, and then the little potentiometer as an input. Okay, now what I want you to do is go in and do your math. When your potentiometer is all the way to the left, your value, your read value should be 0. And when it's all the way to the right, it should be 100. Now, you know it's not going to read that way. It's going to read like 432 to 65,550 or something like that. But you're going to have to convert those numbers into 0 to 100. All right, I showed you how to do that earlier lessons, but I need you guys to get comfortable. I need you guys to get comfortable going in and doing the mathematics. So you're going to be reading from the potentiometer. You're going to be changing those numbers into the values you use, which will be 0 to 100. Now, this is what I want you to do. If your converted value is between 0 and 79, that's like your 79% capacity. Imagine this motor's running. Just in your mind, imagine it's like a motor running, and between 0 and 79%, you're green. You're in the green. You're green lighted. But then from 80 to 94, you're yellow. You're starting to yellow line. You're starting to run it kind of hot. You're starting to run it kind of hard. And so from 80 to 94, it is yellow. And then from 95 to 100 is red. Okay. Now remember, you have to be very, very careful about what? About the transitions. So from 0 up to and including 79, the green LED is on. From 80 to 94, the yellow LED is on. And then from starting at 95 all the way to 100, the red LED comes on. So then when you come in, I want you to show me that as you twist the LED, you need to show me what value you're printing out, and then you need to show me that you're properly transitioning between those 3 regions. Okay, make a quick video of your homework, post it to YouTube on your video, link back to this video, and then down below, leave a comment that links over to your homework assignment. And then also look in the comments and look at other people's homework solutions, comment on their homework solutions. And so we want to kind of start developing a little bit of a sense of community in this class where you feel like you're a part of the class. You start knowing the other people in the class and the other people start knowing you. Does that sound good? Okay. That will be your homework for next week. I'll come in next week and I'll show you my solution to that. And then we're just going to continue to build our skill set, build our skill set, build our skill set. Yes, early on, we're working a lot with the LED because it's good to learn on the LED. So if you make a mistake, you're not injuring an important component. So a lot of these fundamentals we're going to be learning on LEDs, but then very quickly, we're going to jump in and start doing some of the more interesting components that are in this kit. Okay, guys, I hope you're enjoying taking this class as much as I am teaching it. If you enjoyed the lesson, give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. That helps us with the old YouTube juice. And then as always, share this video with other people because the world needs more people doing coding and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.